So as the festive season winds down, holidaymakers are making their way back to work, prompting heightened vigilance from traffic authorities. This comes amid the growing concerns over the alarming number of road fatalities during the holiday period. Across the country, close to 7,448 motorists were caught for offences including drunken driving as well as speeding. The Eastern Cape emerged as a hotspot, recording the highest breath alcohol levels. For a closer look at how the festive period unfolded on the nation's roads, we are now joined by the Chief Operating Officer of the N3 toll concession, Thania Dhoogra. Thania, very good morning to you and a Happy New Year. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Sadly, a story coming out of KZN this morning is that bus crash that happened in the early hours of the morning. What can you tell us about it?
Oh, good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to all your viewers. Unfortunately, there was a serious crash involving a bus and a truck in the early hours of this morning. There were four of the passengers who were entrapped in the vehicle, but they have fortunately all been extricated now, and all of the injured passengers have been transported to various medical facilities. Unfortunately, though, as a result of that, the road was closed for a significant period, and there is a severe backlog of traffic northbound or Joburg bound towards Gauteng. But currently, one lane is open to traffic. It's the fast lane on the Joburg bound. So traffic is slowly moving past the scene while the recovery operations are currently underway.
Yeah. Is it clear how slow the queue is going at this particular moment, if you compare it to your previous stats, for instance?
Not at this stage, unfortunately, but I mean, because they are busy with the recovery operations, and likely you'll see that there'll be a number of disruptions to the flow of traffic, as the towing operators get in there, because these are heavy vehicles that were both involved. Often that means that they do have to close the entirety of the road to get the vehicles out of the way. So there might be quite a bit of disruption, congestion, and delays in the area. We are advising our motorists, obviously, to please be patient. All the emergency services are on scene. Everyone's doing their utmost to get the road open as quickly as possible, and we will do so very soon, but we do require their patience, and also that they please heed all of the warnings of law enforcement and approach the area with caution.
Yeah. Are you able at all to give an estimation? I know that you say soon, but how soon? Hour, 2 hours, perhaps?
It's very difficult for us to say at this stage. What I can tell you is that, we have had the reports already that another bus has arrived on scene to assist with transporting all of the uninjured passengers, for example, and that the recovery is underway and they currently have a single lane open to traffic. It will be as quickly as they can, but that's very difficult to tell, especially with the current weather conditions, because we have had reports of rain pretty much all along the N3 toll route at this point in time, and that will also make for the operations, making it more difficult because of reduced visibility, for example, and wet and slippery conditions in the area.
Yeah. With this particular incident, and you say that at this particular stage, do we know of any fatalities?
Fortunately, we haven't had any reports of any fatalities, but obviously emergency services and law enforcement will confirm, the status of any of the injuries. But at this stage, we haven't had any reports of any fatalities.
Okay. And the thing about, this particular period also, Thania, is that our focus tend to be a lot on the number of fatalities. And we hardly consider the people involved in the accident and then being left with a disability or losing a limb or something like that. And the difficulty around that. Are you able to speak to us about that, and why it's important also to ensure that we don't erase those people as well from the conversations about when we speak about road safety?
Absolutely. Well, you're correct. I think most of the time when we talk about it, people focus on fatalities because that talks to the severity of a crash incident. But they forget that anybody who is involved in a crash, irrespective of whether it's the driver themselves, a passenger, or even, a pedestrian on the road, they will have they have had a life-altering effect on their lives. And, an event that has happened that could result in long-lasting effects. For example, like you said, they could have a disability. Often they might deal with psychological effects from it, the aftermath of it. Many people have to deal with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of being involved in a crash incident. It's not just the losing a limb, for instance. Often if you are involved in a crash where somebody has lost their life, you've got to deal with that for the rest of your life. It's not something you could just wake up one day and decide, okay, well, it happened, it's over, I'm done with it. These are things that people have to live with forever. And, and obviously, it has a long-lasting effect also on the families that are left behind, especially of people who might lose their lives, or where, for instance, you have a severely debilitating injury, for instance, a spinal injury, and where you then need care or need to be in a care facility for the rest of your life. And your carers themselves, it's extreme stress and pressure that gets put on the larger family and community. It's not just an individual.
Yeah, and have you seen any driver behaviour from your perspective and the work that you have been doing, if you compare it to the previous years that we've seen?
Well, I haven't had the stats over the entirety of the period as yet, but I know that there have been a number of interventions that have been conducted all along the N3 toll route. Visible policing and law enforcement has been ramped up over the period, with everyone on this side and on our side doing everything that we can to help road users, to adhere to the rules of the road. Unfortunately, I think that, with the state of drivers in South Africa and with everyone thinking that we are invincible, the minute we get behind the wheel, there will have been reports of speeding and, negligence, people using their phones while driving and being distracted. And I think if we just look at the stats, for example, the majority of the crashes that were recorded in December alone are single vehicle incidents. And that usually talks to, drivers either being reckless or negligent, being tired, for example, taking their eyes off the road, or taking unsafe measures like overtaking when it's not safe to do so, especially now. They might be overtaking. It is, visibility is reduced because of the rain, and they just decide they're going to take a chance, and then obviously it ends up in disaster. So like I said, we haven't had the specific statistics, but just looking at the crashes themselves and the probable causes of it, that itself tells you that many drivers are not necessarily adhering to the message that we are trying to reiterate and reinforce on a continuous basis, that road safety is a shared responsibility. And there's only so much that law enforcement, that, organizations such as N3 Toll Concession, and even our other partners in road safety and the road incident management systems can do. We are heavily reliant on the motorists themselves and road users to play their part in helping us to ensure everyone gets home safely.
Yeah, and perhaps not the case with the N3 toll concession, and this is around the conditions of the roads themselves, because they also play a role on how drivers are able to navigate the roads.
Absolutely. And that's also why it's very important that drivers are prepared, that they are aware of the route that they're going to take before they actually get behind the wheel, and that they are staying updated about changing conditions. Yes, not all of our roads are in the excellent condition that the N3 toll route is in. There's a lot of effort goes into making sure that the road is maintained that way. But there are also other events and other circumstances that contribute to the changing conditions. And it's really important as a driver that you are constantly aware of it, that you're vigilant and alert, and that you're adjusting your driving style to those prevailing conditions. Again, just talking about the weather, for instance, it's raining, the roads are slippery and wet. Most drivers in South Africa would just continue driving as they normally do because, that's what they know. And it's important as a driver that you remember that you have to adjust your driving style. You have to slow down. It's not going to really impact you that much more slowing down and increasing your following distances. What's a few more minutes if you get home safely?
Yeah. Thania, so we're asking our audience this morning whether or not they feel safe on the country's roads. You are a stakeholder in this, and the majority of the people saying that they don't feel safe. 89% of the people that have voted so far say they don't feel safe on the country's roads. How do we get to a point where we get more people feeling safe on the country's roads? But does Thania feel safe on this country's roads?
Personally, I think every time that I get behind the wheel, I'm cautious. I am alert and vigilant to the fact that I am not the only one that is in control, that there are a number of other factors around that I can't control. What I can control is my behavior. So I make sure that I am doing everything that I can to play my part in making sure that I contribute to the safety of our roads. And I think that if everybody does their little bit like that, then we can make our road safer and we can make people feel safe around it. And here we're talking about road safety, obviously, so it's simple things that everyone can do and that I try to do. No, I'm not perfect. But I definitely try and make sure that when I get in my car, I put my safety belt on. That's the first thing I do. If I have passengers, I ensure that they do the same, irrespective of everyone being, no, it's fine, we're only going around the corner. It doesn't matter. Literally, the minute you take off, if you don't have your safety belt on, your life is at risk. Your car doesn't know you're in there. The airbags might not engage. I don't want to take that risk. I'm the driver. It's my responsibility to do that. But I also ensure that my passengers know that if I'm doing something that's wrong, that they call me out on it. So, if I'm not paying attention to the speed limit, for example, and I'm driving at 65 in a 60 zone, that they remind me, hey, the speed limit is 60. It's really important that every one of us is aware of our responsibility, and it starts with us itself. So, I do that. I love that. And I make sure that, I need to practice what I'm preaching. So I'm not just saying this because I want everybody else to do it. You have to carry the message and live the message itself.
Yeah, control what you can. Thania Dhoogra there, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the N3 toll concession.